All right, good morning. Welcome in. There's a lot to go over, a lot of new information. Every single 49ers injury, since it's a day off today, we are capable of covering. So let's start off with a look at Chris Kocurek because he's coaching that defensive line room that has the most injuries for the 49ers right now.
Just like all the other guys, just showing up each day, putting their hand on the door handle to walk in the building, and by the time they walk out the building in the afternoon, just getting a little bit better and stacking days. That's what you have to do as a young player, as a rookie. Not look too far behind. Don't dwell on mistakes that can, spiral. Your play downhill. Just take one step at a time. Don't look too far ahead. Don't look too far behind. Live in the moment. Work on getting better each rep, and that's what he was doing. And utilizing his versatility, being able to multi-line across the front. It's pleasant to see how fast he's adjusted to that and it not be too big for him during the process. So it's really making strides, and fortunate. The knee, when you look back bad on the field, and then got good news on it, and it's not going to be an extended period of time. So hopefully we'll get him back here pretty soon, get him back rolling, and hopefully he can pick up where he left off. But really positive to start camp.
So that's probably the first and biggest injury update that you're interested in. That's Chris Kocurek on Michael Williams. The 49ers got some good news on Michael with the knee injury, said that it was better than they initially feared because when he had to exit practice, you always worry about structural damage to the knee. There was only a knee hyperextension for Michael Williams. It's the same thing for CJ West, who went down yesterday. And I can tell you, I'm here in Vegas where I think it's hot again. I haven't stepped outside yet. This is kind of the Vegas special in August. If there's no Raiders practice, no joint practice with the 49ers, then you don't have to step outside. You could just stay in the air conditioning. It's actually quite unhealthy, but that's what you have to do when it's 110 degrees outside. Anyway, standing out there at practice yesterday, it's bordering 100 degrees. It's 9:15 in the morning, and CJ West goes down, and it doesn't look good. And we're sitting there, and we're like, oh, God, the 49ers already have, 10 defensive linemen hurt? Is this going to be number 11? How serious is it going to be? And the update was that it was very similar to the injury that Michael Williams suffered for the 49ers, knee hyperextension. So that is good news for the 49ers because CJ should be back, I would think, next week. Now, the unfortunate part of this is that neither Michael nor CJ will likely see snaps tomorrow here in Vegas, and you want to give them as many game reps as possible. But you're constantly managing right now between giving guys game reps and also trying to preserve as close to full health as possible for September 7th. For the season opener. A lot of people wonder, why are there so many injuries now in 2025 versus 10, 20, 30 years ago? And it's because teams are much less willing to let players play through smaller injuries, and players themselves are much less willing to play through those smaller injuries. There is a, much lower, I want to say pain threshold, but there's a much lower acceptance threshold of what is acceptable to fight through and what is acceptable to not fight through, just in this modern era of multi-billion-dollar professional sports. So anyway, so much of the preseason is geared toward load management, so these guys are ready for the regular season. And I think if you have to look at the 49ers injury situation as a whole, you see many more examples of players who are only going to be out for a short period of time rather than some longer term injuries. And it's very, very important to make a distinction between both of them. So when you look at my roster, this is all 90 men, 90 plus, because we've got guys on injured reserve too. But when you look at this and you see the injury shading, which is the pink color, you will notice that as we go through it, Isaac Guerendo is going to be back within a couple of weeks. Jordan James is going to be back within a couple of weeks. Juwan Jennings, that's a weirder situation. We're talking about the calf, which is a thing. He posted yesterday from Vegas getting treatment before practice. 49ers hope that he's back by time to practice before the start of the regular season. So it's not just plug and play in week one, but then obviously the contractual situation is something that everybody's going to be speculating about in the meantime as well. Jordan Watkins, that's a little bit more serious for the 49ers, right? High ankle sprain, they said about a month. So I think the timeline puts him right around week one for San Francisco. And then you get into the whole D-line. And this is what we're going to delve into this morning. Do you see all these names along the D-line? They have 21 defensive linemen on the team currently because it's all these guys plus the more serious ones on injured reserve. And that's what Chris Kocurek, 49ers defensive line coach, addressed the other day. Not necessarily the injuries, but the development of this 49ers defensive line, which is that engine, the future-focused engine of this football team. Let's listen in a little bit more to Chris Kocurek the other day.
Last year he was really, really starting to do it. He came into the NFL behind the eight ball with the ACL injury coming out of college, and we knew that it was going to be probably a redshirt year that first year, but then, hopefully, through a year of rehabbing that knee and getting it better and going into the second year, we knew, it's probably going to be his rookie season, and then it's kind of been one little setback after the next for him. Last year he was really, really stacked, a couple really good weeks in the camp, going into the Tennessee preseason game, and then probably played one of his better games since he's been here in that preseason game in Tennessee, and hurt his knee in that game and had to, go on IR to start the year and get half the year taken away and kind of in a rehab setting. But he's really stacked some really good days here at the start of camp. Just the strength levels that he's playing with, the explosion through his hips, the heaviness in his hands to be able to knock back contact. And he's doing a really nice job technically, playing with low pads, getting under people with leverage. And then he's just got twitch and ability in his lower body to find edges as a pass rusher. So he's doing a really good job. Just needs to keep stacking days and keep getting better, and he's on the right path.
So that's on Kalia Davis, 49ers defensive tackle. I find this to be ironic and in a good way for Kalia and by extension the 49ers, but you're talking about injury issues, minor or not, for so many guys. Knock on wood. I don't have any. Here's wood right there. Knock on wood. Kalia Davis is somebody who's been healthy throughout the course of this training camp. And as you heard Chris Kocurek talking about the journey of that third-year 49ers defensive tackle, it definitely hasn't been the case earlier in his career. Kalia was putting on great tape for San Francisco last offseason, like last training camp. And then they showed up to the first preseason game in Nashville against the Titans, and Kalia Davis suffered a fairly significant knee injury. He still played 13 games, but he missed essentially all the preseason because he got hurt in that first game. And then he missed the first 4 games of the regular season. And by the time he returned, he said that it took him a while to get back into the flow of things. And he was, using Kocurek's metaphor here, he was behind the 8 ball the entire time that he was active for the 49ers last year. And he didn't have a great year. He wasn't doing the type of stuff that we're seeing him do on the field right now. Watch him tomorrow against the Raiders. Just watch the strength that Kalia Davis is playing with. The point of attack muscle, right? His ability to just disengage blockers with power is at a level that we haven't seen from him before. And it's, I think, because he's been healthy for the longest stretch of his NFL career. I mean, he just tossed Luke Wattenberg, who's a starting offensive lineman for the Broncos, to the side the other day. Just one hand power move. Luke Wattenberg, who weighs over 300 pounds when flying. Think about the amount of strength that it takes for a 300-plus pound man to just fly like a rag doll on the football field. And then think about the amount of strength it must take to be able to do that with one arm. Kalia Davis, the one-arm swipe that just made Luke Wattenberg fall to the ground and roll, 2 or 3 yards. And then Kalia says, okay, now I could use my explosiveness and I could get out to the quarterback. And he forced an incompletion from Bo Nix on 3rd down. Later, it was against Gargiulo, who's the backup guard for Denver. He just backed him in to the QB. That already was Jarrett Stidham at quarterback. You know what? They've got a couple Auburn guys, the Broncos. I just realized Bo Nix and Jarrett Stidham are quarterbacks 1 and 2. Lombardi herself is sitting here nodding. She might join later on, not on this show. She needs brunch first, but um, well, I think I need brunch too. I needed coffee just to be, I woke up and I'm like, oh my God, we got to get our morning show going. But we haven't eaten yet. Supposedly the brunch place here is pretty good. Just wait till we show you the burger place from last night. That's going to be coming up on, we'll do it with a lunch with Lombardi kind of spin. We found the best burger place in Vegas after taking all of your recommendations. All right. Anyway, so I talked about Kalia Davis on that sack. There's Chris Kocurek. We're going to take Chris Kocurek off the screen, and we're going to go back to the 49ers depth chart. The sack was assisted by somebody named Bradley Anayi, who unfortunately is on injured reserve. He got hurt for the 49ers over the course of either the game or one of the practices after the game for San Francisco. At some point over the past few days, something popped up for Bradley Anayi that ended up landing him on injured reserve, even though he led the 49ers with 3 pressures in that first preseason game. So that's something that obviously is a little bit more serious because he is essentially unavailable to come back to the 49ers. He'd have to be released and then re-signed. Maybe that does happen, but they're obviously not counting on him to contribute to them anytime soon. But we go to more of the defensive line injuries. Talk about short-term returns. Jordan Elliott should be a shorter-term return for San Francisco. CJ West, as I said, shorter-term return. This is a big one. Yetur Gross-Matos, because we haven't seen him on the field yet this year, and I think Yetur is going to be a big, big key to unlock a lot of what the 49ers want to do up front with their defensive line. Why is that? Because Yetur, as you can see, is listed as a defensive end, but when they talk about rushing ends from tackle on passing situations, he probably embodies that the most out of any of these defensive linemen because he's done it before and he's done it at a high level. They want Michael Williams, who will be back soon as well, to follow in the same path. So Yetur, I think it's critical for him to be on this roster and contributing because he is the one blazing the trail for what specifically they want Michael Williams to do on a snap-by-snap basis. So last year against the Bears, that was Yetur's signature performance of the 2024 season, right? Won NFC Defensive Player of the Week honors. He was finally able to fully showcase what the 49ers saw in him when they signed him from Carolina, where he played a completely different scheme. They're playing a 3-4 for the Carolina Panthers. So he was playing some stand-up outside linebacker. He finally was able to get his hand in the dirt, rush the edge in the 4-3, the wide 9 for Kocurek. But on top of that, he was able to work against those guards on the inside with athleticism that guards are not used to blocking. That is the Kocurek special, right? Is finding mismatches up front. And he doesn't care how aggressive he has to get. He doesn't care how unconventional he has to get with the alignments. We saw D Ford rush from the inside at times for the 49ers in that playoff game against the Vikings back in the 2019 season. That was the epitome of the 49ers defensive line when it was at its peak, right? Ford on the inside, working with speed against guards who just, compact guards who just didn't have that kind of movement capability. They're used to playing in a phone booth. They're used to playing with a lot of power. 49ers want to do that with Michael. They want to do that with Yetur. I think it's really, really important to have the veteran out there paving the way in this situation because you've got Bosa, who's probably not going to do a whole lot of that. Bosa's an edge guy. Bosa's one of the best in the league at it. You let him do his thing. You let your, fire hydrant defensive tackles do their thing. That's CJ West, Evan Anderson. We could talk about Evan here in a little bit. Chris Kocurek also talked about Evan Anderson. And then you've got your hybrid defensive ends, your hybrid pass rushers like your Michael Williams, like your Yetur Gross-Matos, attacking the inside on those passing downs for the 49ers. They didn't have any of this yesterday when they struggled against the Raiders. So obviously this is a big deal because this is the engine of the defensive line. Robert Beal Jr. also, I think, next week probably. And here's a longer one. Kevin Givens. Kevin Givens has the pectoral injury, right? So he's going to be out for a while. We're probably going to see an IR stash for Kevin Givens. What do I mean by that? I mean that they want him to return this year. The problem with injured reserve, if you toss a guy on this list down here right now, they stop taking up a roster spot, but at a big cost. They can't return off of injured reserve to play for your team this year. They have to like be released, clear waivers, all these things, and then they come back and they can sign with your team. Basically, players who you're interested in playing for you this season, you don't put on injured reserve. It's essentially a season-ending IR right now for all intents and purposes. So Kevin Givens is still on the roster right now without being on the IR list because they do want him to return, but he's got an injury that's going to keep him out for quite a long time. We're talking probably somewhere around mid-season for Kevin Givens to return. So he's got to take up one of those initial 53-man roster spots to maintain eligibility to return. If you're placed on injured reserve after you make the 53-man roster, you can then return after a minimum of 4 games on IR. So that's the plan for Kevin Givens. He makes the roster. Cut down is in less than 2 weeks. It's in 11 days. It's on August 26th. They will then place him on injured reserve. He will be out for the minimum of 4 games. And then whenever he's ready to come back, whether it be week 5, 6, 7, or 8, he'll be back. Now, the reason that this is tough is because I thought Kevin was going to be a starter for the 49ers. And so I moved him down here to this side of, he's still on the 53-man roster side of things, but he's not going to count that spot after the maneuver that they make. They'll bring back somebody that they cut a day later. It's just a typical roster Tetris thing. But since he's not going to start, who's going to start at that other defensive tackle position? Is it going to be Jordan Elliott? I don't think Jordan Elliott's as good of a player as Kevin Givens. You know, I've even talked about the potential of a trade with Jordan Elliott because they may have to make room for somebody like Sebastian Valdez, the rookie out of Washington, who's the Hulk, right? They call him the Hulk. He looks like the Hulk. He's been playing like the Hulk, and we're going to get to see more of him in Vegas tomorrow. So the Givens injury really is the one that's been truly damaging for the long-term prospects of this 49ers defensive line as they try to build this thing with a lot of these young players. Givens is one of those vets who's been around like Bosa since 2019. And that one's really unfortunate because all the other ones that I've listed, and that includes Nick Bosa, who has a sore neck right now, and that includes Sam Okawanu with the groin injury. All those guys, I mean, they may see a massive return next week for essentially all these guys except for Kevin Givens. So, yes, the defensive line is completely beleaguered. Yes, they needed to sign guys with zero experience in the system like William Bradley King, Damone Harris, Trevis Gibson to fill in for this week. They're also relying on former Jets like Bruce Hector. Bradley Anayi was a former Jet who had played under Robert Saleh. They're brought in Jalen Allen as a speed rusher to give Bryce Huff some rest in some of these situations. So yes, they've had to go to fairly great lengths. I mean, they literally have 21 defensive linemen on their roster right now, which is a record. They've had to go to great lengths to get through this, but it's not a season-ending wave of injuries. The only truly long-term one is Kevin Givens along the defensive line. So I think it's really, really important to delineate that. I talked about how this defensive line had to labor through the practice yesterday against the Raiders, but better times seem to be on the horizon for the defensive line, and it's very, very important to note that because everybody seems to put all these injuries into one bucket, and that's really not a smart way to evaluate things. All right, let's watch a little bit more of Chris Kocurek on this 49ers defensive line.
During the draft process, we, Greg's got Greg Scruggs and Cam Brown and Crowley, one of our, local regional scouts, brought to the table and really liked his skill set a whole lot. So, they made a cut up for me to watch, and he's, you saw on college tape, intriguing dude, quick twitch, violent hands, good motor, productive player at Washington. Then you go back and watch some of the Montana State stuff where he was actually kind of playing a little bit more attack style. You kind of really saw him in a role that similar to what we play, playing across the line of scrimmage, knocking people back. So it's really intriguing prospect. So, we kind of started recruiting him, before the draft, and who knows, could have drafted him. But if we didn't draft him, we really wanted him as a free agent. He was one of our targeted guys, and just to see the way he's kind of progressed from day one till now, it's been nice to see him go about it and get better and learn from his mistakes. He's a very coachable kid. Looking forward to seeing what happens with him in the future.
So that's on Sebastian Valdez, who, everybody has a chance to impress during training camp because there's one-on-one drills and you could show some of your acumen in the film room. But let's be honest, if a team is fully healthy and if it's fully stocked with veterans, it is there is a higher degree of difficulty for undrafted free agent to really, really make a name for himself. So I think one of the reasons too that you're the 49ers and a lot of these guys with minor injuries, you're like, okay, we're going to take a deep breath. We're not going to freak out that there are a lot of minor injuries, is because guys like Sebastian Valdez just naturally have a little bit more of a chance to shine, to prove themselves, because they didn't invest hardly anything in Sebastian Valdez. This is an undrafted free agent coming in on a non-guaranteed contract. There might have been a few $1,000s in a signing bonus. There typically is, but it's a drop in the bucket compared to what these NFL teams typically spend. The vast majority of these UDFAs don't make rosters. Like, they don't make the 53-man roster, and then maybe they go sign on to a practice squad, maybe to somebody else's practice squad. But when one of these guys actually makes the team and impresses, it is a rarity. And you could argue too that it's a rarity because of the lack of opportunity and sometimes the bias that teams hold toward draft picks. It's this sunk cost fallacy. It's like, well, we invested in this guy, we might as well ride this out. And you get the extra year of contractual control, so that maybe incentivizes you to stick with the draft pick over an undrafted free agent to an even greater degree. But there are times, and there are examples throughout NFL history of undrafted free agents and lower round picks, guys picked around number 262 of being really good players and being better players than guys who are selected higher. So anyway, Sebastian Valdez has had his chance over the course of this training camp, and so far he has really, really impressed. Of course, they call him the Hulk, but also just from a roster construction standpoint, let's take a look right here at where the 49ers are at. And I talk about all these injuries for San Francisco. Well, Jordan Elliott being out right now. So Evan Anderson was out up until a couple practices ago. Now he's back for the 49ers. But with him being out, with CJ West now being hurt, Kevin Givens obviously being hurt, that's a lot of defensive tackle injuries. That's really opened the door for Sebastian Valdez. And during the Broncos game, he had what I called the Hulk tackle. It was speed and power on display when he absolutely spun and body slammed RJ Harvey, the Broncos rookie running back, on the zone run to the left. But the amount of traffic that Sebastian Valdez had to sift through on that play, I mean, 305-pounder. He had to move. He had to hustle from sideline to sideline, and there was some dexterity there as he was moving through the traffic, fighting guys off, and then he grabbed Harvey, spun him around, and threw him to the ground. This is not just like some strong fire hydrant type sitting there at the line of scrimmage, hopefully able to absorb some blocks. This is an active, athletic defensive tackle who is built like a tank. And there's a lot of talent in the NFL. He was already shining amidst some of that talent in the first preseason game. Chris Kocurek, the 49ers intrigued. You heard Greg Scruggs. Chris Kocurek mentioned Greg Scruggs. That is the former Seahawks defensive lineman, won a Super Bowl over in Seattle. He is now the 49ers assistant defensive line coach. He's been doing a lot of one-on-one work with the 49ers D linemen, and he's gotten a chance to work a lot there with Sebastian Valdez, who it's probably going to be one of the top watches for me at the preseason game tomorrow against the Raiders. So that's on the Hulk. Now we're going to continue our deep dive. I promised a look into all the 49ers injuries, since I think that we have a lot of good information on this show. Another guy who you expect to return tomorrow or next week, not tomorrow, is Renardo Green. He's been doing a lot of fast work on the side. He just didn't make his MPH total last week for the 49ers. And they thought that maybe he could return along with Jacob Cowing, but that hadn't been the case for Renardo Green. So it's given Dallas Flowers and Darrell Luter Jr. some more snaps. Dallas Flowers, I think, is winning that third backup outside cornerback job, but Renardo is going to be a starter for the 49ers, and he is running off on the side. He's coming back off of a hamstring, and it should not be long. Somebody else, and I guess I should shade him in the injury shading for now, just because he has been out of practice, is Upton Stout. Upton Stout, this is an update on Upton Stout. He is jacked. Yesterday, I'm watching these guys go through their work on the side field, and I'm writing down, okay, that's Bosa, that's Renardo Green, Malik Mustafa. I don't know if he was off on the side, but I saw him by the weight room for a second here in Vegas. And then there was this guy, speaking of the Hulk, just muscled up, and he's not very tall, but I'm like, who is that? Is that a linebacker or a safety that I don't recognize on this 49ers team? And all of a sudden, a light came on, and I recognize his face. That's Upton Stout. That's a cornerback, a nickelback technically. But I hope you understand the misfit here physically. And I think Upton Stout has used it to his advantage. But you don't normally see corners and nickels who are that buffed up. And he put up the most bench press reps of any corner at the NFL Combine. So it fits with his physique. Like he is really, really strong. He's also really quick. The one issue that people keep on talking about regarding Upton Stout, and they were talking about it entering the draft, and this is a bad pick because he's 5'8". Everybody gets it. He's 5'8". There's a reason why the 49ers aren't planning for him to play outside cornerback, but they are planning for him to play in the slot. And I think that muscle in the slot is going to come in very, very handy because it's almost like you're playing a linebacker type of role. You are near the fray. You are near that line of scrimmage. So Upton Stout looks jacked. That's the calf that was a little sore that's been bothering him. I would expect him back next week. Back to here, Stout. There's Mustafa. He's on PUP. He's coming off the ACL. That's not going to be until the season. Richie Grant. That also, what I understand, that's a week-to-week thing as well for Richie Grant. We haven't gotten quite as much insight on that, but the 49ers do not consider it overly serious. I should add Pinnock to this now. This is a breaking news update. We're going through the 49ers breaking here on the injury list, but look at how many guys are out defensively right now. This is what the 49ers were dealing with on the defensive side of the ball against the Raiders. No Green, no Stout, no Pinnock, obviously no Mustafa, no Grant. So you're starting safeties were Marquise Siegel and Jair Brown. You're starting corners, Lenore on one side, and then you saw both Dallas Flowers and Darrell Luter Jr. out there. Saran Neal's more of a special teams guy. So you really started to dip into this side of the depth if you're the 49ers. Linebacker, thankfully for them, healthy. Like, this is wild to me. I mean, look at this. You've got all these injuries in the defensive backfield, all these injuries right now on defensive line. Linebacker completely healthy for the 49ers. So I thought Warner was good yesterday. Winters hit yesterday for San Francisco. That was good stuff for the 49ers. Who else hit yesterday? Jalen Graham had a big hit. But it's just like it skips, like this injury thing skips over position groups at a time. I know Ben Barch is hurt now, but prior to then, the entire offensive line was available. All of the tight ends were available, but then you had a ton of issues at receiver, a lot at the running back position. Quarterback, I know Curtis Rourke entered with a torn ACL, but they, knock on wood, have stayed relatively healthy for the 49ers. So that's a look up and down at absolutely everything. This is why you're going to see so many reserves playing tomorrow against the Raiders, but the 49ers do want to play the starters that can actually suit up because they want to start knocking some of that in-game rust off as this season begins. Let's listen to a little bit more of Chris Kocurek. He had a couple other pieces of intel for the 49ers.
During the draft process, we, Greg's got Greg Scruggs and Cam Brown and Crowley, one of our, local regional scouts, brought to the table and really liked his skill set a whole lot. So, they made a cut up for me to watch. And he's, you saw on college tape, intriguing dude, quick twitch, violent hands, good motor, productive player at Washington. And you go back and watch some of the, during the draft process, we, Greg's got Greg Scruggs and Cam Brown. During the draft process, we, Greg's got Greg Scruggs and Cam Brown. And, last year he was really starting to do it. He came into the NFL behind the eight ball with the ACL injury coming out of college. And we knew that it was going to be probably a redshirt year that first year. But then, hopefully, through a year of rehabbing that knee and getting it better and going into the second year, we knew, it's probably going to be his rookie season, and then it's kind of been one little setback after the next for him. Last year he was really stacked, a couple really good weeks in the camp, going into the Tennessee preseason game, and then probably played one of his better games since he's been here in that preseason game in Tennessee, and hurt his knee in that game and had to, go on IR to start the year and get half the year taken away and kind of in a rehab setting. But he's really stacked some really good days here at the start of camp. Just the strength levels that he's playing with, the explosion through his hips, the heaviness in his hands to be able to knock back contact. And he's doing a really nice job technically, playing with low pads, getting under people with leverage. And then he's just got twitch and ability in his lower body to find edges as a pass rusher. So he's doing a really good job. Just needs to keep stacking days and keep getting better, and he's on the right path.
All right. Apologies. We had to shuffle through a couple clips there. We ended up getting the Kalia Davis clip at the end. And I think that one embodies a lot of the 49ers injury situation right now. He is healthy after years of being hurt, and now the teammates around him and along that defensive line are hurt. So, but Kalia's getting his chance, and I think he's going to start for the 49ers in week 1. Now, who joins him in that rotation? Well, if the recoveries happen the way that the 49ers are projecting them to happen, with a lot of these guys just around the corner from being back, that they should be fine along that defensive line. But you always have to remember that other injuries can pop up. But the way they designed this training camp was to be peaking physically entering week 1. So they did max load. You heard Kyle Shanahan on the 49ers show that they have a cool little behind the scenes documentary look at building the team. You heard him in the opening meeting saying, guys, we want to max out the rep count at these joint practices. I think that the highest rep count might have been against the Broncos last week. And yesterday was the longest 49ers practice that I ever covered. I might have been a little colored by the fact that I was standing out there in 100-degree weather, but they went a full 15 periods against the Las Vegas Raiders, and obviously are putting a lot of strain on themselves. But it's August 15th right now. They've got a good 3 weeks until the start of the regular season. So now it's going to be all downhill as far as workload goes. And that allows the 49ers to get rested, to get healthy. When you go from off-season mode to training camp mode, putting in all that work that the 49ers have had to put in over the course of the past 3+ weeks, you're bound to run into injuries just like the rest of the league is. But now you've got to make sure that the body is ready for the start of the regular season. It's like building a callus, right? I think that the 49ers are very much in the business of building a callus. And if they could, you got to avoid the Givens ones, but it's football, so it's hard to avoid some longer-term injuries. There's usually a couple of those in every training camp around the league, and that was really unfortunate for the 49ers. But it is about now making sure that those smaller, more minor injuries, some of the wear and tear of camp, some of the stuff that you're being careful with is taken care of ahead of week 1. All right, a few more minutes. Smash the like button. Papa J says so. Yes, and then here's another. They can also do this with Kevin Givens. As of you are correct about this. There are a couple maneuvers they can go with for Kevin Givens. You can designate 2 players to put on IR and be eligible to return. However, what you're writing down here is not fully correct. You cannot designate those players to IR during camp. You can only put them on IR at the cut down itself. So there is a maneuver on August 26th the 49ers can execute that allows Kevin Givens to return within 4 games. And it's essentially the same. The league is doing this because in the past, teams had just cut a guy, told the guy they'd re-sign him the next day to keep the guy and put him on IR. So to avoid that whole dance, there are now 2 players you can designate directly to IR. Yes, they can use that theoretically for Kevin Givens. The reason I didn't say that was because in effect, if they don't use that, and sometimes you need more than 2 of those, but if they don't use that, then they could go the roundabout way and find a player who they re-sign the next day. Bo, thank you, Bo. Appreciate it. Member for 4 months. Bo has been a member for 4 months, and he says he has a great point. I'm looking for my phone so I can get the thermometer here. He said if it's August, it's hot outside in Vegas. Yes. There are no exceptions to this rule. It's only 89 right now. I thought it'd be over 90. It's 9:32, so we are already in the window where practice was last night. As you can see, 89 degrees. Probably the ring light there is going to be a little too intense, but practice was happening. We were 45 minutes into practice yesterday. I think it might be a little bit cooler today than it was yesterday, but yes, Bo is correct. Bo is a great example. He's been a member ever since they've been open. He gets access to some of our exclusive longer-term videos early. So be sure to go ahead and check out Bo. And he's like a member, right? Go see that little tag that he's got on there. You want that too. So you could see the videos early. You could be just like Bo, who's one of the great viewers of this channel. Memberships definitely very appreciated. Good way to support what I think we're calling the Lombardi Lounge. That's a cool name, right? If you have a better name for the show as a whole, then we could call it something else. Usually, like we had started Lombardi Lounge when me and Lombardi herself were together on a show. She might be on a show a little bit later today. She just walked down the brunch because our reservation is like right now, but I'm sticking around for a couple questions because I am dedicated. You get access to an amazing juice emoji as a member too. I don't think that it pops up on the screen here, but yes, that is true. Those are all created by Mike himself. You like the Lombardi Lounge? Good. I think that's a solid name. I think Mike came up with that name. Mike comes up with everything, so we're just going to go ahead and give him permanent credit for all good ideas. Jacob Cowing's out there, but I think he's reintegrating into the offense. I mean, he was out for 3 weeks of training camp, so he's not making all too many plays yet. I would expect the rapport with Cowing to improve here over the next couple of weeks. He's going to have enough practice time to be a factor for week 1. They're worried that Jordan Watkins, even if he's ready by week 1, is not going to have enough practice time to do that. And that is definitely a concern for the 49ers, but it is what it is at that receiver position, right? You want Juwan back as soon as possible. By the way, there was a picture yesterday of Juwan Jennings here in Vegas. Mike shared that with me. This is posted on Juwan Jennings' Instagram. That wasn't not Chris Kocurek. We got to get him off the screen, but we can get Juwan Jennings on the screen right here. Getting some treatment in Las Vegas yesterday, posted on the Instagram. The calf thing is real for Juwan Jennings. So is the contract thing. I don't know if he's holding in. Like I know that he wants a new contract. I know that it's a tough needle to thread for the 49ers, given their current financial situation, given the investment in Brandon Ayuk last year following the ugly standoff. So 2 things are true at once. And that's one of the many things that the 49ers do need to figure out. And Juwan Jennings also, the calf needs to get into a better spot. so that the 49ers are fully ready for week 1. It's something he's been dealing with here for the past couple of years. This is up on the San Francisco Standard. It is the comprehensive piece about fistfights or lack thereof at 49ers joint practice with the Raiders. So you should absolutely check it out. This has been your Desert Deep Dive to begin this beautiful Friday morning. We got a lot of good stuff coming out today, including the best burger in Vegas. That's going to anchor our next show that will drop, I don't know, in a couple hours, few hours. I don't know. Whenever you guys want it, we'll talk to you all very, very soon. Take care.